Hello again, this is Coach Jason, and we're looking at our series on how to find tactics. We'll be doing the removing the defender tactic today, and we will be using these 4 categories of things that generate all tactics. All tactics are generated by these 4 things, and there's nothing else. Checks, captures, loose and semi-loose pieces, and unfortunately placed pieces, and we will get more into detail on these as we look at the examples. And please stay tuned, as at the end of this we will have a tactic that is the second most powerful tactic in chess. Let's get into it. Okay, you can pause your video if you want to go ahead and solve this. As far as loose and semi-loose pieces, so category 3 here, the bishop on d4. The bishop on d4 is a semi-loose piece because it is guarded by the king and attacked by the rook there on d8. The rook on g1, the black rook there, is also a semi-loose piece. It is guarded by the bishop there on d4, and is attacked by the king. So semi-loose pieces are part of tactics. We also want to consider checking moves, that top one there. So rook takes bishop removes the defender of the rook. So we simply just capture that bishop. We're sacrificing our 5-point rook for a 3-point bishop, but we are going to go ahead and capture this rook as well, and then we've got that it's about to promote, so that's an easy win for us. Okay, pause your video if you want to solve this one on your own. We've got category 2, the loose and semi-loose piece category. It's actually loose pieces here. So white to play here, and the bishop on a7 is a semi-loose piece. The black rook is a semi-loose piece. We could almost capture that rook if it wasn't for the defense of the bishop. So actually category 1 and 3, we can play this checking move, removing the defender of the rook. And so we sacrifice our rook for a bishop. We lose 5 points there for 3, but then we gain another 5, and we're up 3 full points. And now we should be able to advance this pawn pretty easily. We're in front of the pawn, which is where you want to be when you're trying to promote. Well, this would be a draw if the pawn was right up on c5 there, but since we have this extra move, now we can get to our key square here, and there's no way to stop this pawn now. The king covers all 3, and we can go ahead and promote it. Okay, go ahead and pause your video if you want to think about this one. It's difficult to kind of characterize this one. I guess this knight here is semi-loose. I guess that might be the way to kind of look at it. It's guarded by the pawn and guarded by the king, but we have our queen and rook attacking it. So it seems kind of crazy, like it doesn't seem like it's going to be worth it if we sacrifice our queen. But if we remove this defender, this a7 or e7 pawn, excuse me, then things change quite a bit. And so we can go ahead and play this move here, and the king can't defend his rook, so he loses the rook as well. If he would try to defend his rook by moving to f8, we would checkmate by moving the queen to h8. So we sacrificed our rook early on, but we win the knight, the pawn, and a rook, so it ends up being an excellent deal for us. Okay, go ahead and pause your videos if you want to think about this one. What do we got here? Semi-loose pieces. Well, the knight on f6 is semi-loose, guarded twice, the queen and the rook, and attacked twice, also by a queen and rook. We've got some checking moves we could play. Queen takes rook, or queen takes h7. Interesting thing here is, if this knight on f6 was not there, it'd be a completely different game. So we can just go ahead and capture that knight, and it's checkmate. This is mate in 2. There was nothing they could do about it. Game over. Okay, go ahead and pause your video if you want to think about this one. Let's start looking here. Yeah, there's a checking move, which is interesting. Bishop to h6. That might be kind of cool. What else do we have? Well, unfortunately placed pieces. Category 4. The rooks are positioned in a knight fork of course, this knight is keeping that from us. So we can actually just go ahead and capture that knight, and then we're able to make the play on the unfortunately placed rook. So we capture the knight, and now, we messed up the pawn structure. Those doubled isolated pawns, those are no good. And then we're also going to win the exchange, trading our minor piece, or our knight, for a rook. So a 2-point gain there as well. Okay, go ahead and pause your videos if you want to think about this one. We have unfortunately placed pieces once again. So the king and queen are once again positioned in a knight fork. Not all unfortunately placed pieces are in a knight fork, but in this case it is. And we could almost play this move knight to f2, but their knight is guarding it. So we sacrifice our rook for it, and if they take our rook back, then we win the queen. So they probably won't even capture. This computer probably won't even capture, and they don't. They just go ahead and defend instead. So we just have to find a decent spot for a rook. Nice little outpost here ought to be good, and we win on that tactic. Okay, as promised, second most powerful tactic in chess is discovered check. So you really want to avoid putting your pieces on this, especially your royal pieces, on the same rank as a rook. So the king sitting here on the F file is very dangerous. So we can put our bishop anywhere we want, and it's basically immune to capture. Well, depending on where you move. If you want to pause your video and think about the best move here, go ahead and do that. We can win the queen by just moving the bishop here. He's got to get out of check, and we get an absolutely free queen. It cost us nothing for that queen. That's why this is the second most powerful tactic in chess. Double check is the most powerful tactic in chess. The king always has to move in that situation. Thank you for joining us for this video on how to find tactics, removing the defender. Don't forget these 4 categories. You should memorize these and think about these every time you go to make a chess move. If you are constantly vigilant for these 4 things, you will never blunder, as long as you discover them all. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell if you want to see more videos like this one, as I will be putting out at least 2 chess videos every week.